Okay, so we're gonna progress forward here and go to a kind of secondary screen after our intro screen. But one thing that kind of drives me nuts is putting in things like this as a variable. Uh, let's make a property list. It keeps things a little bit cleaner and more flexible for later. So instead of this little dummy array, which was aptly named, let's go and make a property list. So we're going to go over here to File, New, and then File again. And if you want to just kind of quickly look forward in here, you can put in here Property List. There it is. Click Next, and of course we want to save it in there. You don't really have to check it off for this target, but what the heck, we'll just leave it in there anyway. And all right, so what we're going to do is just click the plus sign over here, and let's just call this, how about emoji icon? And that's a nice little reminder to turn off those notifications. This is going to be an array, so go over here just up to array, and now what we'll do is put in here the names of everything that we just had in our dummy array. All right. And actually, icon's not really, that's real. Let's put in here just emoji. A little easier for you guys to read. Okay, so save that out. And for right now, that's really all we need to put in there. Go back over this way, and in our initial setup, let's go over here and just write parse property list. And of course, we need to actually write that function. Okay, so let's right over here, let path, and this is going to be the path to where that property list file is. And you know what? Now that I'm looking at it, I didn't give this the best name, did I? Let's just call this, instead of property list with a space in there, let's just get rid of that. And I'm okay with just calling it property list. That works. Path, and then for resource. Okay, so this is going to be property list of type, and then you just put in there, oops, plist. Don't have to put a period in there. Okay, and basically everything in there is in a big old dictionary, so just gonna put over here, dict ns dictionary is gonna equal ns dictionary, and contents of file is what we want, and just put in here your path. Okay, so basically just gonna take everything that is inside of there, you know, from the root on down, which really isn't that much stuff, right? See that big old dictionary, and put it into this variable. And then what we want to know is, well, first let's see what this problem is. Yep, okay, that's what's in my notes too. All right, so put both exclamation marks inside there, and then we just want to know what you know, what's inside of that dictionary. So we can say if dict.object for key, and here's where we would write emoji. So it's basically going to first check to see if there is a object with that key, right? So we're checking, does this not equal nil? If it doesn't equal nil, that means it at least exists. And then what we can do is make an array equal to whatever that is. All right. So instead of calling this dummy array, let's you know, give it a better name. Let's say something like emoji array, and we'll make this equal to that right there, which basically is just saying that this this array is going to be of type string. So anything that is inside of it is going to be string type, you know, data, right? You know, we could put in here something like any object, but since we know that this is just going to be string data, it's a little bit simpler to go ahead and do that. And of course, now we're going to get some errors for all these places inside of here that we had, that we referenced dummy array, but that's really easy to fix. Just do a find and replace real quick, or you can just go over there and find them yourself. Replace all, there we go. Okay, so that should handle that. And then back down here, we're going to say emoji array is going to equal dict.object for key, emoji, and we're going to put in here as a string. Okay. Now, basically, this is kind of forcing this to be an array of type string. So what you would want to avoid is being sure that you didn't do something like this, okay? Right, because it would go through here and go, that's a string, that's a string, that's a string, that's a number, I can't handle it, right? So just don't do that, but I'm sure you won't, right? And we should, at this point, just be exactly where we were at before. But you know, let's be positive and test that out. Okay, and obviously the world did not come crashing down on us, so we are now using that that property list. Perfect. All right. Let's head over here to the top of the file. Just copy out this first line, and we are now going to do a let's just say emoji picker. We're not really making emojis, but I don't know. I guess we kind of are. And now what we're going to do is when we click on the press start button, we'll basically get rid of our intro picker, and we will switch over here to the emoji picker. All right, use something different. So let's find our pressed start button. And we'll get rid of our intro picker right away. All right, so remove from super view. We can also get rid of our start button at this point, remove from super view. But now what we want to do is basically put this into kind of a more full mode, okay? And we're going to actually request that we move up to our expanded mode. So we're going to say self.request presentation style.expand. And I have a feeling that if you tried to put in a line like this right over here and your view did load, Apple's going to reject it. Okay, they want the user to initiate going into this expanded mode. Otherwise, people kind of can't just quietly, you know, swipe left or right to go between your iMessage apps without yours popping up into expanded mode. Just not a good user experience. But you know, when they press start, then we can go ahead and force them into this expanded mode where you know you can give them more options to use. So getting into expanded mode always takes, you know, like a half a second or so. That's why we kind of have these functions that detect, you know, when we actually transition to up to them. So what we'll do is we'll kind of we'll make a variable over here that basically says that we are in, let's just say in, let's call it like emoji mode, right? This will be a Boolean variable, and initially that'll equal false. And probably what you know, if we ever reran this initial setup, right, where we add our intro picker and add start button, then we'd want to go and set that to being false again. But of course, when you pressed start, where did that go to? Then what we're going to do is say that, hey, in emoji mode is going to equal true. And then that way we can use this variable down here at the bottom in our did transition statements to kind of separate what's going to happen here. So, right, we're not going to reposition for compact or expanded and move around these items if we're in this emoji mode. So let's see. I guess probably the easiest thing to do is just say if in emoji mode equals false. Then we'll do everything that we had before. Else, I'll say, pull a note here in to customize an emoji. All right. Okay. And what we'll do is we'll kind of use this as our trigger now for setting up this whole mode. So we could do something like this. We could say if emoji picker dot superview equals nil, which means that basically it doesn't have a super view, so it hasn't been set up yet. Then we'll begin setting things up. So let's just at least test that this is working so far. So let's say print we'll set up emoji mode. Okay, so move those guys around. We'll hit caption this. And sure enough, you did notice that you know, there's a little slight delay, so it moves up into expanded mode, and then we get to it runs setup emoji mode. So again, the larger point here is that now that we're in expanded mode, we can use things like self.view.bounds, width and height, or just height really, to position all of our elements without having to worry about it previous or being in compact mode and giving us wrong values. Okay, so we should obviously call a function here. So we'll say set up emoji mode. And where should we write this? Let's see. Let's go over here and pick out a good spot for it. Maybe you have to press start, right? Let's put a little mark in here. Oops, sorry. Alrighty. And like we did in our initial setup, let's call separate functions for setting up specific things. So we'll say add emoji picker, and we'll just step right down here and put that in. Okay, so we're gonna say self dot emoji picker dot delegate equals self and dot frame. This is gonna equal CG rect. And we're going to put this kind of at the top. I'm going to offset it just a little, like 5 pixels from the sides, so it's not butting right up against it. And then for your Y, you probably want to put in here about 85. There's a little bit of space up at the top in expanded mode. And it's about 85 pixels worth. Okay, and then for the width, self.view.bounds.width -10, because remember we offset this by 5. So to keep it centered, we want that to be -10 for the actual, oh, whoops, you know what? I forgot to put width in there. And then for the height, let's just try this as about half the height. Divided by 2, okay. Of course, we need to actually add this in, so self dot view dot add subview. There's our emoji picker and emoji picker dot background color. By default, it should be clear, but let's just put in here clear anyway. Okay. All right. Now that that guy is in there, of course, we need to specify in our picker view functions, a little something different, right? Because, and actually we already have it here, some if statements for, specific ones, but we'll want to do that, set up a couple extra columns. So basically what you'll be able to do is kind of go through and customize what image you're going to put in the background of whatever image you initially picked out, right? So let me just run it. And I'm sure you guys have already kind of seen whatever demo you're watching this for a reason, because you were intrigued by the first video. But in this point in time, I haven't actually created all that stuff. So I'll explain it anyway. So you'll be able to pick one of these images, caption it, and then you'll be able to choose basically another image, like LOL, WTF or something like that. And then we'll do a second column over here where you can move or scale those items, and then we'll just kind of use this area down here to do all that sort of work on it. Yeah, so that's where we're headed with that. So let's go ahead and let's figure out how to pick apart these existing functions. So the number of columns, this is going to change to 2. So what we'll do over here is we'll say if picker view equals intro picker, then in that case we're going to return 1. Else we're going to return 2. And then as for the rows, that's really going to depend on the how many other sub images we have. So for right now, well, again, we can just copy that. For right now, let's just put in here 10. Okay, and then we've already got the row height for component. We can probably leave that at 50 regardless. And then the width for the components. This should still work just fine, because remember on our intro screen we had, this is already set up to be half the screen. Well, now we're going to be taking up about, the entire width. So dividing this by half, that should work out just fine. And okay, so let's see. All right, and then our view for rows. Again, let's put in here if intro picker. All right, else. And if it does help you a little bit, as this kind of whole thing gets a little bit bigger, if you want to put an else if statement in here, where you put in here emoji picker, I'm not going to fault you. I think that's a fine idea. Okay, but in this case, we are going to have to deal with our two of our our columns, right? So we do want to check to see which component we're dealing with here. So if it is 0, right, that's going to be our first one. We're going to do one thing else, and again, I don't think this is a bad idea, if you put in there 1. Oh, actually, you know what though? Now that I think about it, we do have to end with a else. Okay, well, let's try this. Do it like that. What is your complaint right here? Oh, yeah. Okay, for right now, just for testing purposes, let's take that out of there. We'll actually use it. And let's put it in both of these ones. What we'll do, though, is we'll just write in here row plus row. And we probably have to put a string in there around that. And actually, we could say component 1 row. And let's use that that same font that we had before. Where do we, let's see, have that? There it is. Okay, and I think we're still coming into a it's that same complaint, expected to return UI view. So it's I guess there's a condition in here where, let's see, I guess we have to do this. Okay, now let's see what happens. So that was a little too specific there. I'll have to remember that. Okay, so caption this. And sure enough, all right, so we've got, obviously, well, okay, yeah, we just need to get rid of that for right now. The reason that crashed is we basically spun the wheel to a value outside of, because our emoji array only had, 4 items or something like that. And it was trying to print out basically something that didn't exist. Okay, so you can see that we've got component 2, up to 10, which starting at 0. So we only see 9 over there. And there's our second one. Okay, so we got some work to do when we come back, obviously. What we'll end up with is different images on this side, and then what we're going to do to those images over here. So this will probably just be, again, move, scale. If I can figure out the rotation, we'll do rotation as well. And then we'll see those changes down here where you can, so basically if you spin over here to the move one, then you'll be able to move these items and then ultimately end up creating an image out of whatever you've done. Okay, more to come.